Community is about a group of friends at a community college. This sounds so simple. There's been hundreds of shows about college students, but there's something truly special about this one. There's one special ingredient that separates community from the rest. Hi everybody, welcome to Mind and More, where we talk about anything that comes to mind and more. I've been rewatching Community and I got to thinking about what exactly makes this show so good. Yes, the writing is phenomenal. The writers don't rely on stereotypes or common tropes to come up with storylines. But beyond that, there's something else that just draws you in. The diversity of the characters. Beyond obvious racial diversity, the characters are varied in so many other ways, and I'll list these ways. Out of the 7 members of the original study group, Jeff, Troy, Abed, Annie, Britta, Shirley, and Pierce, you can find at least one person you relate to in one way or another. These 7 have extremely different personalities, values, beliefs, and experiences, but somehow they manage to become friends and it never feels forced or like tokenism. In most college TV shows, there's cliques that are filled with slightly different iterations of the same person, so chances are high that you won't see yourself in any one of them. But in Community, this group is so diverse, you can't help but find it relatable in some way. Firstly, there's age diversity. At the start of season 1, Jeff, who's sort of the leader of the group, is in his mid-30s, around 34. Annie is 18, Troy is 20, Britta is 28, Abed is in his 20s, somewhere between Troy and Britta's age. Shirley is in her mid to late 30s, and Pierce is about 65. You've got people in their late teens all the way up to mid-60s. A friend group can't get any more unique than that. From the differences in age alone, you have varying perspectives. The way you see the world just after high school at 18 is not the same way you see it in your late 20s or in your mid-30s, and definitely not the way you'll see it at 60. These differences are played for laughs with Annie and her naivete, Britta and her quarter-life crisis, Jeff and Shirley not wanting to be viewed as old, and in Pierce's backward and non-politically correct views. There's also differences in what brought them to Greendale Community College, and this is my favorite part of the show. Jeff was a formerly successful lawyer who lost his license and job after lying about his qualifications, so now he's at Greendale to get a real degree. Britta decided to go to college after spending the decade after high school fighting for various causes before realizing she hadn't built a career yet in her late 20s, and she now wants to move forward in life. Next, there's Abed, who's there for the school's film program that his father pays for as long as he takes business classes so he can one day take over his family's falafel restaurant. Troy was once a successful high school football player who got a scholarship to a better college but came to Greendale after deliberately injuring himself because he didn't want the pressure that came with the athlete lifestyle. And there's Annie. In contrast to Troy, she wasn't popular in high school, but was an overachiever who had a bout with pills in order to cope with everything she'd committed herself to, and eventually had a nervous breakdown in her senior year of high school. She then ended up at Greendale instead of a prestigious university she'd been on track to attend. Shirley is a recently divorced mom of 2 who decides to go back to school to sharpen her business acumen. She's been a stay-at-home mom who's been out of the workforce and now wants to start her own business. Then there's Pierce. He's been at Greendale for many years, even though he doesn't really need to be. For him, Greendale is more of a place to just socialize. I, for one, definitely see myself in many of these stories. There's been times when I've been the person who puts a lot more than I can handle on my plate and found myself crashing and burning like Annie. Times when I've wanted to reinvent myself like Shirley, and times when I've done something just for the vibes like Pierce. Community also has some serious religious diversity. In season 1, episode 12, when Shirley hosts a Christmas party for the group, it's revealed that they all have different beliefs. Shirley is obviously Christian and a very devout one at that. Annie is Jewish, Abed is Muslim, Troy is a Jehovah's Witness, which is a different Christian denomination to Shirley's. Britta is an atheist, Jeff is agnostic, and Pierce might be in some kind of a cult that he mistakes for Buddhism. I love this. Despite their differing faiths or lack of faith, the group makes it work. Yes, sure, there's some initial tension with Shirley hoping that everyone would just join in on her Christmas celebration, but they eventually move towards understanding and acceptance and have an inclusive party. Adding on to the list, members of the group have varying socioeconomic backgrounds. Jeff was a lawyer working for a big firm, which maybe places him in upper middle class. But since losing his job, he may have been facing some financial troubles. In season 1, episode 8, we find out that he's currently homeless and living in his car after having lived in a fancy condo. He goes through a brief phase where he loses interest in material things and starts living in Abed's dorm room, but eventually snaps out of it and finds another apartment. Annie grew up in a rich family, but she's been cut off from family funds and starts living in a rough neighborhood and finding ways to make ends meet. Britta also grew up rich, but she's been rebelling against her family and chooses to live a broke lifestyle. Troy and Abed seem to come from middle-class backgrounds, while Shirley might be in the lower middle class, having recently split from her husband and having to be a single mother of 2, trying to pursue an education. Her financial situation might not be at its most stable. Finally, there's Pierce, who is rich. He's the heir to a moist towelette empire called Hawthorne Wives. He lives in a mansion and can buy anything he wants. To wrap this up, we can also discuss their varying personalities. Jeff is confident, but he's also a selfish and smooth-talking manipulator. However, he grows into a more caring and considerate friend. Britta is rebellious and free-spirited, but also pretentious, and although she's actually smart, she sometimes overestimates her own intelligence. Troy is the cool jock who learns to embrace his nerdier and goofier side while also learning how to be a responsible adult. Abed is a very observant, smart, and socially awkward film and pop culture nerd who also grows a great deal during the course of the show. Annie is a hardworking, ambitious, sweet, and naive girl who grows into a confident woman who can find some balance between work and play. Shirley is this kind Christian woman who has a few tricks up her sleeve. She's also tough as nails and knows how to have a good time despite what you'd initially think. Then finally there's Pierce. Oh, Pierce. He's a jerk sometimes. He's always been wealthy, so sometimes he's out of touch. He also just says offensive things, but at the end of the day he cares for the group, even though he has a funny way of showing it. None of the group members are alike, but they find a way to build a friendship that feels believable. From all of this, I'm sure you can see how rich in diversity community is and why this makes it special. I didn't even include the Dean or Chang or other main characters from the later seasons. But from just the 7 in the original study group, you can see how despite differences in age, background, beliefs, and life paths, there's more that brings us together than separates us. Despite their differences, these characters come together and build transformative friendships. Community also teaches us that hardships and mishaps in life can lead us to unlikely connections that challenge us to heal, grow, and discover different and often better versions of ourselves.